If you're ready to sell your vehicle, what are your options? Hello, and welcome to Auto Be Careful, the place for car safety. I'm Gene, and after 9 years, we're finally selling our 2017 Subaru Outback. This is our last video with this vehicle, and we're going to go over what options we have for selling it, including auctions, selling it to a dealer, and private sales. Then we're going to reveal what option we chose. Let's get started. Let's start with auctions. Auctions are a great option if you'd like to sell your vehicle within a specific time frame and still get a decent price for it. The price the vehicle sells for can depend on a variety of factors, but it can usually yield a favorable result if the auction has a decent audience and the vehicle is presented well. The way an auction works is the vehicle is listed for sale and potential buyers bid on the vehicle within a set time frame. If the terms of the sale are met, the vehicle is sold to the highest bidder. For in-person auctions, the bidding period usually starts and completes within 1 day. For online auctions, they usually have a longer bidding period, like 1 week. When submitting a vehicle to an auction, the auction host usually asks for some information about the vehicle, including who owns the vehicle and if a reserve price is needed. A reserve price is the minimum price required in order for the vehicle to sell. This helps ensure that the vehicle owner doesn't sell the vehicle for an exceptionally low price. If there's no reserve set, the vehicle will sell no matter what the highest bid is. But if there is a reserve set, the vehicle may not sell if the bids are too low to meet that reserve price. If there is a reserve set and the highest bid is at or above the reserve price, the vehicle will sell for that highest bid price. If a reserve price is set and the highest bid does not meet that reserve price, the vehicle may not sell, but there are a few cases where it may. One case is if that reserve price is not met, but the highest bidder and seller are allowed to contact each other in order to negotiate a final sale price for the vehicle. Another case is if the reserve price is not met, but the host of the auction is willing to reduce some of the fees that it charged in order to help facilitate the sale. For example, if the host of the auction charged $500 in fees for the sale of the vehicle, but the highest bid is $300 short of the reserve price, the host may reduce some of the fees that it charged and give those to the seller in order to meet the reserve and facilitate the transaction. These fees can include fees to submit the vehicle to the auction, fees to participate in bidding, and/or fees charged when the vehicle sells. In any case, a reserve price is a really important part of a vehicle's auction process. Since in-person auctions require coordination from buyers and sellers on a specific date and time, we're going to focus on online auctions because they're a little bit more convenient. The big two online auction platforms are Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids. I have no prior experience selling a vehicle on either of these two platforms, but I wanted to give it a try to see how they work. Both of these platforms seem like they attract people to their websites by listing cool and interesting vehicles for sale. That means they can be pretty selective about what vehicles they accept to host for auction. A pristine Subaru Outback is something that I would describe as safe, reliable, and affordable, but not particularly cool or interesting, even though they're marketed for adventure seekers. Since there were 200,000 Subaru Outbacks sold in 2017 alone, I don't think this vehicle is particularly rare. It's also one step up above the base version, which means it's a pretty common configuration, and it's in a color that I would consider pretty common as well. Based on all of this, I don't have high hopes that either of these platforms are going to accept this vehicle for auction, but they could surprise me. I am going to submit this vehicle with a requested reserve price, but both of these platforms make some of their money based on the transaction price of the vehicle, so they're incentivized to ensure the vehicle sells. With that in mind, if either platform wants to host this vehicle for auction, they may come back and try to negotiate a lower reserve price in order to ensure the vehicle sells. I'm going to start with cars and bids. This is a pretty popular option for enthusiast vehicles, and they seem to be quite selective about the vehicles they accept. At the time of filming, there's only ever been one fifth-generation Subaru Outback auctioned on their website, which is the same generation as ours. It's pretty easy to submit a vehicle to this platform since they only require some essential information about the vehicle and 6 photos to review it. We received a pretty quick response from Cars and Bids saying that this vehicle isn't a good fit for them right now. I appreciate how kind they were in saying no to this vehicle, and I may try to submit another vehicle to them in the future. We're also going to submit to Bring a Trailer. This platform has been around for longer than Cars and Bids, and they host a wider variety of auctions. Based on that, I think there's a slightly higher chance that they'll be interested in hosting an auction for our Subaru Outback. But like Cars and Bids, at the time of filming, they've only ever hosted one Subaru Outback 5th generation. It was a little bit harder to submit the vehicle to Bring a Trailer because Bring a Trailer's website has drop-down menus for make and model, but Outback isn't one of the options in their drop-down menu, so we have to manually enter it. Apparently doing this can cause the review process to take even longer. We did actually receive a pretty quick response from Bring a Trailer saying that this vehicle would not be accepted for auction. Again, this would not deter me from submitting another vehicle to them in the future. Before we move on, I want to say that I had almost no hope that this vehicle would be accepted at either platform, so I'm not disappointed in any way. I also want to say that if you've submitted a vehicle to either one of these platforms and had it turned down, you are not alone. I know it can seem hurtful to put a lot of time, energy, and effort into a vehicle only to be told it's not good enough. But that's not really how I look at it. Like I mentioned earlier, both platforms seem to drive traffic to their websites by listing cool and interesting vehicles for sale that grab attention, and not every vehicle is going to fit into their portfolio. I can only speculate as to why this Subaru Outback wasn't accepted for auction, but I just don't think it's going to be interesting enough to bring people in to the website for these platforms. All right, let's move on to dealers. Dealers are a fantastic way to quickly and easily sell a vehicle, but they come with a cost. If we sell this to a dealer, we will not have to worry about getting a bunch of paperwork together, taking great photos of the vehicle, making sure it passes any required testing, or finding a buyer. The disadvantages of selling to a dealer is that the dealer will want to make money on flipping the vehicle, so they're not going to offer the best price. To give you an example, the last time I sold a vehicle to a dealer, which was a trade-in, they offered me about $12,000 for the vehicle, but they then listed it for sale for $18,000. Depending on the final sale price of the vehicle, they may have made about $6,000 by flipping the vehicle, which means it cost me about $6,000 for the convenience of not having to sell the vehicle myself. To some people, that level of convenience may be worth it, but some other people may have a hard time dealing with a $6,000 loss. There is one great advantage to getting offers from a dealership, which is that it gives me a good idea of how much this vehicle is worth on the low end, and looking at what they list similar vehicles for gives me an idea of the market value of the vehicle. That tells me how much money I'm giving up for the convenience of not having to sell the vehicle myself. There are some people who differentiate brick and mortar dealers from online retailers like CarMax and Carvana, but to me, they're pretty much the same. Regardless of the process of selling the vehicle, the end result is I am selling the vehicle to a place where I don't have to put in any work to find a buyer. I simply sell them the vehicle and leave with a check. Because of this, I'm going to focus the rest of this section on CarMax and Carvana. We're going to start with CarMax. It's pretty easy to submit a vehicle to CarMax, and once I submitted all of the information about this vehicle, they gave me an offer right away. The offer they provided was roughly half of what they list similar vehicles for on their website. They do mention they reserve the right to adjust the offer once they receive the vehicle and are able to evaluate its condition. We did also submit to Carvana, which was just as easy, and they also gave us an offer right away. They did mention that they also reserve the right to adjust the value once they receive the vehicle. They also seem to list similar vehicles for twice the amount that they offered us. The offer from CarMax was slightly better than the one from Carvana, so if I had to choose between the two, I would go with the CarMax offer. Both of these offers are good for about a week, and after it expires, we can resubmit the vehicle, but the offer may be lower or higher than the previous offer. Now we have some baseline numbers of what this vehicle is worth to a dealer that's trying to make a profit on it. Both of these offers were a little less than what I would like to get out of the sale of this vehicle, and they're a lot less than what these dealers list similar vehicles for. So we're going to move on to our last option, and if that doesn't pan out, we may go back to the CarMax offer. Finally, we're going to take a look at a private sale. This is going to be a lot more work, and it's probably going to take a lot more time, but it should give me a better sale result and hopefully the number I'm looking for. For this type of sale, we're going to gather up all of the information we have about the vehicle. While it's not required, we did already pull a Carfax history report and get a pre-purchase inspection done on the vehicle. Part of the reason we did that was to share the experience of what it's like to get those things done, and we did that in our last video. But we also wanted to make sure that we disclosed any potential issues about this vehicle to a potential buyer. I think it's important to share as much as possible about any vehicle we're selling for a couple of reasons. The first is so the buyer knows what they're getting when they buy the vehicle. But we also wanted to prevent any disputes that could happen after the sale. If a seller sells a vehicle knowing there's problems with that vehicle, but fails to disclose that to the buyer, they could be responsible for damages to the buyer as a result of that known issue. We're also going to need to clean the vehicle inside and outside and take some great photos of it for the advertisement. We also need to gather documentation, including the title and/or bill of sale. The vehicle may also need to pass some testing, including safety or emissions testing, in order to sell the vehicle, and proof of that passing result may need to be supplied to the buyer as well. We also need to ensure that we include all the keys, including both of the regular keys and the valet key, plus accessories like the cargo area cover and both sets of floor mats. According to Kelley Blue Book, this vehicle is either in good or very good condition because it doesn't have any major mechanical issues, but there is some cosmetic damage, so it's hard to pin down an exact value for it. I'm going to list it somewhere between the CarMax offer that we received earlier and what similar vehicles are listed for in our area. Now we're going to jump into the future and find out what the result actually was. Okay, the Subaru has been sold, so I want to talk about some of the high-level details about how it went. I am going to do a much more in-depth video about the complete process from listing it online to getting paid, but for right now, I'm just going to give an overview. From the time that we listed it online to the time that the vehicle sold, it took 13 days. This private sale process took significantly longer than selling to a dealer, which can typically happen within one afternoon, and it took about twice as long as using an online auction platform, which usually auction a vehicle within 7 days. It was also significantly more stressful to both meet potential buyers, which are strangers, and handle test drives, because if the vehicle is damaged or stolen, that usually falls back on the seller's insurance, which can result in higher premiums. Now let's get into the numbers. The offer I received from Carvana was $7,500, and the offer I received from CarMax was $8,000. Both of these offers were based on the actual condition of the vehicle. I did resubmit the vehicle to CarMax as if it was in perfect condition, and the number went up slightly, but that number was pretty unlikely. Both platforms appear to list similar vehicles for about $15,000. That meant if CarMax purchased our vehicle for $8,000 and sold it for about $15,000, they would make about $7,000 profit minus any clerical and reconditioning costs. Our sale price was $12,000, which was $4,000 more than what CarMax offered us. So instead of CarMax making possibly $7,000 on our vehicle, we got to pocket an extra $4,000. That $4,000 is over 50% of CarMax's potential $7,000 profit, which again didn't include any reconditioning costs, which would have eaten into that $7,000. Overall, we're very happy with the result. Now let's go back in time and say goodbye to our 2017 Subaru Outback. All right, it's time to say goodbye to this Subaru Outback. It's been a wonderful journey, and we're so thrilled to see it go to a new home. Stay tuned because we have some updates to the Auto Be Careful fleet, including which vehicle we chose to replace this one. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like button below and subscribe to see more content like this.